We're just going to crank right into this. Caroline Woolard spoke at Farmhouseconf 3. Did you come on up? Did you fly out from New York today?
Yes, I did.
Are your arms tired?
Oh no, it was actually 2 days ago.
Oh, so you had a day of resting your arms.
Yes.
But yesterday they were tired.
All right. I'm in a lot of groups, so I'm going to set a timer because I like to think about equity. So I'm really glad to be here. Thanks for flying me out. I'm based in New York, and I thought I would talk about a few things that I said last time, and then the project that I'm really excited about for the future, which actually is about doing the same thing. So we'll see if that's appealing to anyone. But what I talked about last time is how I started off when I was in school doing very illegal things that I thought would benefit the public, and it turned out they did, like seeing stop sign posts as opportunities for public seating. I would fabricate my own public seats and attach them to stop sign posts and then maintain them for people in New York. I also made a backpack that became a swing for the subway so that people could swing on the subway. And I still make small projects, but I started thinking more and more about how there are limits to representation. So a lot of the projects that I made were provocative, but my peers make sculptures often about sustainability that are not actually sustainable in terms of the labor or materials involved. And so I was moved a lot by my friend who said, what if making art or making business was not always a journey to someplace else? What if you aren't on a journey to someplace else? What if you're not waiting for a new innovation or a model that will somehow be better than the way you currently live today? And so I kept thinking about the ways that I could see my labor and the materials I used as transformative in the same way that the idea in my project was. So rather than having art teachers who are landlords charging as much rent as they can of anyone in the community in order to make work about justice, we could see ourselves as people who actually charge rent to our friends at a price that we both agree is fair. And so last time I talked about how these interventions in public space moved me to make a barter network called Our Goods, where I think about my labor in relationship to my peers in order to make projects. And that led the group that started Our Goods to make Trade School, which is a barter-based school that allows teachers to ask for services instead of money from students. And that is now in 50 cities worldwide. And what I've been thinking about more and more is that there are a lot of people who are invested in the so-called sharing economy. And it's really important to me that we don't just make the next startup, but that we actually think about the way our relationships can be transformative now and tomorrow, that's not changing all the time, but actually is about relationships of trust that are consistent and reliable. So I thought I should find out how many people here are working on startups that are in what you might call the sharing economy. Raise your hand. So not that many, but for those of us who are, and if you use Airbnb, maybe this is another way to think about it. How many people use Airbnb? Okay, so let's just imagine that there were other ways to support each other and more technologies, more and more startups that weren't about renting a room as a form of sharing and neighborliness, but actually ways to transform ourselves that really thought deeply about who we become when we use these tools. And that doesn't mean don't use Airbnb. It just means you can demand of companies the same thing that you might demand of a community, which is, what is enough and when will you help me? So imagine if Kickstarter and Airbnb said, we know what surplus is, and once we've made a certain amount, we're going to redistribute it back to all of the people that have used it. If this is truly a sharing economy, then we need to imagine at what point we have enough. So I think when I hear you talk about limits to growth, it's really important to think about our own appetite for accumulation and excess, and think about the ways that we aren't just waiting for collapse or for a better moment. We're actually creating ourselves and our relationships right now. So the project that I've been really excited about is committing to live in Brooklyn for the next 60 years in one neighborhood, which seems almost impossible, but it's something that I keep talking about because I've realized that the projects that I was doing made visible gifts, like rather than helping someone and just having it known between the two of us. These sites often make our gifts visible in a way that is necessary because we don't have longevity. There isn't a kind of shadow of the future where we'll see each other again. And this kind of mutual aid is natural if you know that you're going to keep seeing each other. So I realized that Trade School and Our Goods and Solidarity NYC and a lot of projects that I've been involved in New York will be less necessary when I have face-to-face, long-lasting relationships with people. So the very radical thing that I've been saying anytime someone asks me, what do you want? And we're actually moving towards it now, is to think about land as something that is not a product or a commodity that you make money on, but is one that builds communities and relationships and potentially civilizations. So what if we had land-based philanthropy? Rather than asking for money, or when you get money, putting it into land that you could always rely on to live in and not charge as much as possible. So in New York, what I'm really excited about now is a group called Nicely and Picture the Homeless. And together we're working to think about land in New York as something that can allow low-income housing to exist, where the land is mandated to be permanently affordable, so that you have all the rights to home ownership that you might already have, except the right to make a profit on it. The thought being that if we need to learn how to build community because collapse is impending or actually existing right now in relationships of distrust, we can start relying on one another and thinking that we will find abundance not when we sell our startup or one day in the future tap a new fossil fuel, but when we actually know what enough is. And then we can say, I've already made it. Thanks.